Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today, since I've been posting more frequently, a video every week, amazing, I wanted to take a few minutes to explain the new direction that I'm taking this channel. Obviously, my views have changed quite a bit from the past, and I also think my approach to this channel has begun to change a little bit too, and I wanted to explain a little bit of that in this video. So I've made a few of these the purpose of my channel videos before, and I think all of those videos were fine, but I think the focus of those videos was too much on my motivation behind making the channel rather than what I'm trying to do with the channel. In the past, I talked about why I made the channel as being improving my extemporaneous speaking or improving my presentation skills or exploring ideas for myself. And I think all of those things are true and explain my motivation for creating this channel. However, I don't think I explained well enough the value that I'm trying to give to my audience and the framework that I'm working in with which audience I'm targeting, which type of way of thinking that I'm targeting. So, with all that in mind, let's kind of jump into the way I want to define this channel. So, obviously, with any sort of YouTube channel, a huge goal of the channel is to appeal to some type of fan base, get views. That's part of the business. I mean, ideally, the goal would be to build the channel enough to where I'm making money off of it, but that is way in the future. And right now, the goal is just to find an audience and make content that people are actually interested in. So let's begin by kind of analyzing the set of all potential viewers. Imagine every single YouTube viewer, everyone in the audience is right here. And then I need to kind of pick out who I want to appeal to, the kind of audience that I'm trying to build. So with that in mind, the first step is obviously defining a subject matter. And once you do that, you're already kind of putting off the vast majority of the YouTube audience. Unless you're like Mr. Beast or some other channel that appeals to a large swath, like majority of the internet sort of YouTube channel, you're not appealing to everybody. And there's people who don't enjoy Mr. Beast content too. So starting from this point, once you define your content, you're already excluding a huge number of people from watching your channel. And given that my channel focus is politics, philosophy, and math, since most of the world is not inhabited by nerds, sadly, there's not as large of an audience here. So with all this in mind, we have subject matter defined. That's cutting out a huge percentage of the audience already. But it's also important that you pick a subject that inspires passion, that you have a large swath of knowledge of, and something where you can find viewers. So you need to be able to balance all three things. And I find that math, politics, philosophy can do all of those things, but especially math, I'm not going to find a lot of viewers from that. Politics and philosophy, some of the more technical aspects of that may be difficult to find viewers for. But those are the things where I'm trying to make something that I am passionate about as well. So once you have that subject defined, there is a sort of the next direction that you can take it is define the type of content you want to create within the subject. So one type of content, the goal is to appeal to everybody who is interested. So this would lead to sort of everybody being interested. This type of content I'm going to categorize as broad content. This type of content, it's less dedicated to a single ideology. It's more focused on, like, an example would be like an education channel or a news channel or something that the main goal is to have an unbiased reporting on the facts of a subject. So with that in mind, that's what I view as like general content. Now, the other type of content is something more niche. So this would be like and this only appeals to like a small swath of the audience or a small group of the audience. So here would be like you just carve out a very loyal, dedicated fan base in here, in this small section of people that you are trying to appeal to. So with this in mind, this type of content would be more exclusive content. It's something with a more narrow focused, highly dedicated audience, and it fills kind of an underserved niche. And another difference when you think about broad content versus niche content, along with the fact that your audience is going to be less dedicated as you do broad content, but it's more generally appealing to a large group of people. It's also less understandable by people who aren't already interested in that content. So something that's extremely narrow may be difficult for people to understand that who aren't normally interested in the content. So they're not going to seek, if they are, like, everyone looks up philosophy at some point, everyone looks up politics at some point, especially during an election. But if you create super niche content, your videos are not going to be the type of videos that they're watching. They more want education, news, broad content, versus this narrow content specifically is more more trying to fill a niche of people that are ultra interested in the subject as framed from a particular perspective. So this would be highly technical channels for experienced people in a field, like math proof channels, or maybe not general math proof, like something like Numberphile or 3 Blue 1 Brown would be more broad mathematical content. But something more niche would be a channel that goes through very complicated proofs in number theory and doesn't try to make it as presentable to a general audience, more focuses on a highly dedicated niche audience. Additionally, another type of niche content would be something that, like, some ideology, something like objectivism, like my past videos, or something like young earth creationism, or something like the alt-right, or something like communism. These things fill a very specific niche for people looking for content from a specific ideology. Now, ultimately, this can be seen on a spectrum ranging from the most specific content, the most narrow, to the most broad content. So let me draw this out. And these pads are very difficult to write on sometimes. I'm used to actual pieces of paper, but I'll get more familiar with this as I keep making videos, obviously. So when we think about content, you could think of things over here like very niche ideology channels or expert-driven channels versus broad channels, and these are highly dedicated, so that's why I'm drawing it as like a very thick dot. Versus the broad channels, it's less individual dedication, but you appeal to a larger audience, and that it's kind of a question of density versus volume within these potential viewer subgroups. Some people gain views off of density and small volume. Some people gain off of low density but high volume of viewership. Now, in the past, my old channel was an example of a niche ideology channel. It kind of fell over here. And my goal was ultimately to get lots of highly dedicated fans from the objectivist audience. However, for me, this type of channel, I enjoyed it at the time. And those with very similar opinions to me were very dedicated. We built a strong community. And this community quickly formed around objectivism. It was a highly dedicated community. However, it also, people outside of the objectivist community looking in, people were not going to join, people were not going to follow it. So it was very concentrated on this one small group. Now, as I have come to, also this type of channel also requires a very high level of commitment to the ideology, which ultimately was the cause of me not posting on the channel anymore. I became less committed to objectivism. I started to doubt objectivism. I had questions. I didn't really get good answers from objectivists within the community. So over time, I kind of fell away from that channel and stopped posting. But now I have, I lost interest in the ideology. I lost my passion for the channel. Now lately, I've begun a process of trying to learn and understand about my interests in a broad sense more. Learning about different types of ideologies, how different ideologies interact, learning about general math education rather than trying to look into math from an objectivist lens in the past. So now, redefining my interests, I've found that I'm more interested in broad content and less ideologically focused content. You can see more reasons for that in my Why Ideology Causes Brain Rot video. I feel like even as my opinions have shifted from that video, I think that that particular video has stood the test of time fairly well. And this exploration, this willingness to explore outside of the ideology and try to have a more broad topic set is why I enjoyed discussions and debates on my channel so much. And this content tended to perform better than some of my more like individual proselytizing, the dogmatism of objectivism. So this content, the interviews, debates, those were my favorite things so far, by far. And now that I'm less committed to the ideology, I have decided to move in the direction of creating more broadly focused content. Rather than proselytizing an ideology, my goal is now to expand it. Obviously still have opinions. Obviously, I still have opinions on politics. I still have opinions on different philosophical issues. But the goal, ideally, of this channel is to become more of a space where we can have open, honest dialogues with the goal not of polemics, not of putting other ideologies and ideas down, but of having actual rational discussions and understanding why the other side thinks certain things and understanding why different sides think different things. Now, obviously, I'll have my opinions, and I have the goal of explaining them as well, but I want to shift to a more open-minded sort of perspective that more appeals to a broad swath of people who are interested in the philosophy of religion, who are interested in general ideas in politics, and who are interested in math education. So as such, the goal of my channel, in the past I used to focus a lot on having debates and going through and debunking ideas that disagree with me. That's not necessarily the goal anymore. My goal now is to open a dialogue for discussions and seeking truth. And a lot of people claim that they're interested in seeking truth and having discussions, but you can tell from the way that they engage, ultimately their goal is to debunk another ideology to gain assurance of their own ideology. I'm not as interested in that anymore. I have my opinions and I want to explain them as well, but I think the goal here should be provoking discussions, trying to seek truth, trying to seek understanding, rather than simply trying to defend my own ideology. Now that's the ideal goal. Obviously, there will be times where ego gets in the way. I'll get drawn into some of these debates and discussions. But the goal here is to seek truth, understand broadly different ideas. And based on all this, the sort of way that I want to reframe the pillars of my channel is as such. Let me scroll down again. I want to begin. So in the past, I had a huge focus on philosophy, and politics as the main two pillars that held up my channel. And with all that in mind, the goal of these was more so on this former channel to prove my ideology correct, the current ideology that I held correct. And now with each of these subjects, I also want to add a lot more focus on another. So this was the channel in the past. Now my goal is to focus on building up a third pillar of math content on the channel. And finding ways to link this to philosophy content. Additionally, while I still want to discuss politics, I want this pillar to become less pronounced. So I'm going to draw this as like crumbling as a pillar. So ultimately, the main goal that I want to have with the new channel is to focus on math, philosophy, politics. And the goal first is to have an increased focus on math as a topic. I want to create more educational videos on math rather than videos about why the objectivist perspective on math is true. And one idea that I have for this that I've already kind of started on, given that one of the 3 videos that I released was an introduction to mathematical logic, is going through a book on number theory and building it from the ground up. There was a book in college that we went through that is basically, I think it's called let me check actually, I have it right here. This book, my goal is to go through this book, Number Theory Through Inquiry, which is basically just a set of, it just goes through proofs, and you can just go, like, every page there's a bunch of different theorems and different proofs that you can go through and just go and prove them on your own. And there's no answers in the book, but I have a lot of these proofs already written from my time in college, but I think just going through this book, looking at the different proofs will be super helpful. This was my favorite book, my favorite class during my entire undergrad. It was incredibly fun. So creating more content like that, going through mathematical proof, kind of building number theory from the ground up sounds really cool. And then into the realm of philosophy, given obviously my shift from objectivism to Christianity, I'm going to have more of a focus on theology, discussing God, discussing different, my opinions on God. But I do want to have a more open sort of framework rather than trying to defend my exact position and shove it down your throat. I want to provide more perspectives. I want to try to fully explain the atheist positions on things and then fully explain the different Christian perspectives and how they address the atheist perspective. And ultimately, I'll still give my opinion on what I think is the most solid. This is still my channel after all. I want to build something where I ask more questions and focus on the structure of arguments, and provide counter arguments, and then also obviously apply it to life whenever possible. And then additionally, the last point, I want to deprioritize politics. I think when we're thinking about this spectrum of debating versus seeking truth and debating and debunking versus seeking truth, politics has become a realm where ego has gotten so involved, where people are very feelings driven. Like, politics is their identity, and as a result, politics has become this extremely emotional game where facts don't really matter anymore. People tend to simply defend positions and die on hills that they shouldn't be dying on, just because that this is their political position. It's like their identity. And when they hear their political opinions being attacked, it's a identity crisis for them, and they have to defend it in a very like debunking, not seeking truth sort of attitude. So I think my goal there is to deprioritize politics. I don't want to focus on defending these positions as much because a lot of these discussions aren't fruitful. People aren't interested in seeking truth here, and people aren't as focused on facts. So in the few times that I do talk about politics, I want to focus on facts, not make my opinion necessarily the central focus of the video. Like with the Kamala election forecast, when I did go into why I voted Kamala, but I feel like my goal with that video, I wanted to have a fact-based focus on what is my prediction for the election. I ultimately predicted Trump, even though I voted for Kamala. I'm not going to die on the hill of a Kamala prediction like someone like Destiny would have done. But yeah, and I want to also keep discussion more open. I want to express my opinion, hear different opinions, hear different perspectives, all that sort of stuff. And while I'll still try to hold, defend, and explain my positions, I want to create a less combative environment where I'm not condescending to people or dismissing people. I want to focus more on just asking questions, understanding their framework, and then pointing them to different resources that can help them question their framework or help them see the other side of these different arguments. Because in all of these arguments and discussions, there's so many rational people on both sides, but I think oftentimes that gets missed in this cloud of egos and cloud of emotions that comes when people struggle to understand why somebody rational could disagree with them. I think a lot of times people struggle with that, and it leads to these very unproductive dialogues. One person that I find does this well, you can disagree with this if you want, because I'm sure people have all sorts of opinions on a public figure, but I find that Alex O'Connor does this incredibly well, hosting people from different perspectives, trying to do a very good job of explaining things from multiple perspectives. Obviously, he has his own opinions, and he's very vocal about them, but he still, I think, is fair and charitable to the other side, and does a good job of having a posture of seeking truth. I think ideally my goal would to be on this channel to be sort of a Christian version of Alex O'Connor. And obviously my channel will evolve and change and do different things from him. But right now, that sort of ideal of creating a place to have discussions and seek truth, I find to be incredibly valuable. Additionally, another person that inspires me a lot is Gavin Ortland of Truth Unites. I find his approach to things to also be very open and very good at explaining different perspectives rather than trying to pretend like there are, like, all the rational people are on his side of the issue and there's no rational people on the other side. There's lots of different good perspectives on different issues, and I find it incredibly condescending and dismissive when people don't listen to the other side. Yeah. I think there's so much more to get into here, but for now, since we're already at 23 minutes, I'll leave it at that, and I think this can serve as a good introduction to what I'm trying to do with my channel and the direction I'm trying to go. So, yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the... Oh, and one more thing. Please subscribe. If you like what I'm doing with this channel, please subscribe. I want to grow this channel. I want to appeal to more people. I want to help people think more critically and think more rationally. So yeah, with all that in mind, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Peace.